Hello and welcome back to the Loyal Sun Show. That's at the Loyal Suns on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and I think a fourth one. Follow us there and follow us here for Pitt sports content you won't want to miss. The Loyal Sun Show, a safe, sunshiny place for your Pitt Athletics fix. If you love Kade and hate Frank Signetti, this is the place for you. The Pitt Panthers opened up the 2024 season with a decisive 55-24 victory over the Kent State Golden Flashes. But Dylan and Squid, before we get into all of the things that we liked and disliked, what gives us hope, what causes us ache, we owe more than a handful of apologies. So why don't we start there? Dylan, who would you first like to apologize to? Who did we talk unnecessary and without foresight shit on leading into the season that made us look like morons?
Well, I'll apologize to Eli Holstein. We were riding the Yarnell train, put out a decent number of tweets complaining about the decision to choose Eli Holstein as the starter for the Kent State game. And he made us look like idiots almost immediately. Just played with a ton of poise. Did not look like a freshman making his first collegiate start. That dude just balled out on Saturday.
I might have cared a little bit too much about some clips from the spring game, some missed passes, some bad reads, some inaccuracies. There was not much of that at all. And yeah, I would say we're a little bit snake bitten by quarterback arrivals of the past in the way that Pat Narduzzi and his coordinators have handled that. So it took a moment, but I'm glad that it was a quick rip the Band-Aid off. We're all in now. Like, no looking back.
Yeah, I feel genuinely stupid for the shit we said about Holstein, really. And don't get me wrong, I feel for Yarnell. I kept calling for Yarnell when we were watching the game, and you guys kept saying, shut up, or do not see what Holstein is doing right now, because by the second half, I was like, all right, Holstein's good, but like we can't not give Yarnell a fair shake at this. And we ended up not doing that, but you guys were exactly correct that pulling the freshman who had 300 yards and 3 touchdowns almost at halftime would have been stupid, and that it was very clear in that moment who the quarterback was going to be going forward. So Eli Holstein, we are sorry.
Yeah,
Squid, do you have...
Before we move on, we need to spend a little bit more time on this and apologize more because of just how quickly we got that one wrong.
I mean, after the first drive,
as we were saying some of these things, like I was sending texts like, am I an idiot for not being a little bit more excited about this quarterback that committed to Alabama about a year ago? Now he's just on our team with 4 years of eligibility to go. The fact that he won the position battle should excite me, but I was more so upset with how the offseason was handled. And yeah, in hindsight, maybe I should have been like, new highly recruited guy. Nice.
Yeah, maybe instead of looking at it as, oh, Coach Narduzzi is once again grabbing some unproven dude or some provably like not that great dude, as he has done in the past, out of the portal and handing him the job to the guy who should be the incumbent, who's been in-house for years. And we should have looked at it as, oh, wow, this near 5-star won the battle outright in camp when it was pretty much being handed months ago to another guy. Bad read on our part. Bad read.
Hey, we'll take that.
Yeah, we'll take it.
Going into the game, I was like, wow, I hope I look like an idiot. And no, after about one drive, I felt like, oh, okay, we were just absolutely wrong. So we'll take it.
Yeah, that throw to Kenny in the corner.
Yeah.
I think that was like a pretty instantaneous, like, oh,
We're all right.
Side note, I felt like a genius on that play, and it's purely from playing NCAA football. I was sitting next to my brother, and I went, oh, they have a guy pressing Kenny Johnson and no safety help. They should just run a double route and hit him in the end zone. And then within 5 seconds, he caught the ball at the pylon. And I felt like a genius. So I just wanted you guys to know that it's not all stupidity coming from the loyal Suns. And also that EA Sports is making geniuses out of all of us.
Great for the
Any
next
one of
generation
us.
of play callers.
Exactly.
There's some other apologies to be made.
Yeah, Squid, do you have an apology?
I guess we can say the Western Carolina crew, the Baby Cats, the WC3. I don't know if we've coined one of those yet, but there was some less than high praise about bringing in some FCS transfers who are undersized. Like, how good can they be? I will say I was pretty bought into Desmond Reed. I thought he could be pretty solid. The receivers, though, I don't know. I don't think any of us were there and thought that they were the answers to our offense, but Poppy Williams looked pretty good. CJ Lee had a real big drive. I don't think he played a ton, but when he did, caught some footballs.
Sincerely had more catches and yards on a drive in the second quarter than I thought he would have the whole year. He had 3 straight receptions. Ended the drive with like 4 catches for 50 yards. The drive.
Sincerely simply just needs to go by sincerely. CJ, like, if you're a first team all name guy, not to derail this, but like, you just can't go by CJ. So
I'd like fun to say.
I'd like to just make it a point that we're going to call him sincerely moving forward. Yeah, all 3 of those guys. I mean, I think Desmond Reed, once again, heard all about him, all the hype, and it was like, oh, are they just hyping this guy up? Because, I mean, after the Rodney Hammond news came out, which I think we'll have to talk about that at some point today, a little more in depth. But once the Hammond news came out on Friday, it was like, oh, they were hyping this guy up because he's the only experienced running back they have on the roster now. But no, he lived up to the hype plus some on Saturday. Obviously, the small stature, how can he hold up through a 12-game regular season? That's still a concern for me, but I don't know. From what I saw on Saturday, he is absolutely electrifying and a legitimate difference maker, and can change the tone of the game on one touch.
Yeah, I sincerely did not see that coming. But he was simply the most electric player on the field. That kickoff return was ridiculous. Every time he touched the ball, he made something happen. And what's crazy is we probably haven't even seen the full extent of it yet. He only caught 3 passes for 11 yards.
Well, his best play of the game was that punt return. He should have had his head taken off, but he broke a tackle, kept his balance, ran 60 yards for a touchdown. His first run of the game, I think it was his first run of the game. It might have been his second. It was only a gain of like 5 maybe, but he ran to the right, broke 2 tackles, bounced off of them, cut back to the left, ended up getting 5 when he probably should have lost a yard or 2. So he does run hard. He was breaking tackles.
He has crazy balance. I mean, he's not going to run anybody over, but he was like pinging off of guys and just staying on his feet and making a cut and continuing a run.
And then
his
obviously
mixture of agility and balance is crazy.
In the run up the middle, I don't think he was touched. So the combination of the shiftiness and the speed there, I think we can work with that. I don't know if we'll miss Rodney Hammond as much as we think we might. Maybe premature there, but I don't know. I like what I saw a lot.
Obligatory. It was against Penn State or Kent State comment. So we can just get that out of the way now, and we don't have to preface everything we say with, we'll see how it goes against better competition. Do want to throw that out there, but either way, the speed is clearly there. Like, it's not like he was fast at the FCS level, but it's a whole different game up here. No, he has legitimate game-breaking speed at the FBS level.
Right. And, maybe this could be something we get into a little bit later. We definitely need, he had 150 rushing yards, but I still couldn't escape the feeling that we are going to need another running back to emerge because he is still little and he is not going to have the running lanes that he had against Kent State, against other competition, especially if Don Corleone is suiting up for Cincinnati on Saturday, which apparently is a possibility. We'll cover that more in another episode this week, but we're gonna play some big boys who can knuckle up, and we are going to need a guy who can lower his shoulder and run between the tackles and give Desmond Reed a breather in between 40-yard runs. And I'd love to see Rodney Hammond would have been great for that, man. But I don't know. Hopefully that's a role that Derek Davis can fill in. He had one run that looked like the Terminator, and it got called back for a hold. But he looks every bit the part. We just need to see it after a couple carries.
Any more apologies we need to make?
Yeah, so do we cover all of the Western Carolina guys that we called too small?
Yep.
All right, then let's go to King Catamount, guy right behind me, Coach Kade Bell. We didn't say too much. I think negatively about Coach Bell. I think everybody had came from a position of this might as well happen. This is better than Signetti. Let's just give it a shot. But I don't think we were especially high on what was going to happen. We definitely didn't expect it to look as modern and well thought out and cohesive as it did.
Yeah, I think if anything here, the apology is that we didn't hype him up enough. Like,
Exactly.
I think there was just some cautious optimism on our part. Like, they were really good. The FCS level put up a ton of yards and points. But, we'll have to wait and see. He'll have to prove it to us. And I thought it was very clear from the jump on Saturday. Like, this is a very real, very legitimate play caller, like young up and coming star in the coaching profession. Not to get ahead of ourselves, but like, it was just, we were watching a completely different game. It felt like than from what the sport I feel like we've watched the last couple of seasons.
It was the first time.
Should be for how good they looked right away. We were talking about, are they even going to break out the real plays? Are they going to look like a mess? They've only had this much time to completely go from Frank Signetti's 2005 offense to this completely different up-tempo, snap it in 7 seconds type of offense. I didn't see any sloppiness.
No.
They're throwing it all over the field. They're taking deep shots. So I don't know if they held a lot back, if that's what we're going to see every week, but if we have some tricks up our sleeves, we might be a scary offense to deal with.
Did we have a procedural penalty?
So I want to say, I think it was more that we had a couple holds get some plays called back, but maybe, but it really looked clean. It looked really clean.
Shocking, unbelievable. Would have never guessed that. And listen, I do not understand the X's and O's well. That little bit earlier where I called the Kenny Johnson. That is the extent of my ability to read a defense is say, oh, if they're in press coverage with your best receiver and there's no help over top, you can probably just have them run by the guy. Like, that is the extent of my X's and O's knowledge. But I think I know, you kind of get a gut feeling when you're watching, like, this is what a college football offense is supposed to look like. And like last night, watching USC and LSU, the way that they used misdirection and motion and schemed guys open, that is what you expect to see from a good program. That is what we saw on Saturday from Kade Bell. He was scheming guys open. He was He was creating tendencies and then working against them. He was getting the ball in his playmakers' hands. When is the last time we saw Pitt receivers get schemed open, genuinely schemed open?
Yeah, it's not rocket science. Maybe Frank Signetti skewed our perception of that, but I think our expectations for Kade Bell might have been too high coming in. We're like, this guy needs to have a brand new revolutionary offense never been seen before. No, just make it easy for your quarterback. To start the game, Eli Holstein was making some easy throws, intermediate routes. I mean, he made some tough throws too, but he was a lot of quick reads and making the right choices. And that's all we can ask for in the year of 2024 college football.
I think the big thing for me that felt different was it felt like Holstein had an idea, and this is credit to Holstein, but also credit to Kade Bell for putting him in a position to do this. But it felt like Holstein always pretty much knew where he was going. Like when the ball was snapped, he knew what receiver was going to be where they were going to be open. It didn't seem like he had to think too much, go through a bunch of reads. Like you said, David, he was just scheming receivers open, and he knew that after I'm going to take my drop, and then Kade Mumpfield's going to be 12 yards out, and he's going to be open because that's how this scheme is going to work. We'll see how that progresses through the season, but it just felt like everything was so quick. He was making it easy for Holstein, got him in a rhythm early with some quick, shorter passes, 5 to 7 yard gains, but got him in a rhythm early. And then they end up taking that shot on the first drive deep to Kenny. But it was a breath of fresh air. It wasn't a guy sitting back there having to look through, all right, that receiver's not there. He's not there. Who's open? It was like, as soon as he got the ball, it was getting right out to a guy who had 5 yards of separation.
I found it really funny that there was a tweet going around breaking down that fake screen, like wheel route to Gavin Bartholomew. I think every Pitt fan has seen it, liked it, sent it to like their group chat or their dad or their brother or their uncle. But it was just so funny to see one play and every Pitt fan's like, wow, this is groundbreaking.
Yeah. There's a film guy I follow on Twitter who writes for The Athletic, Ted Wynn, and he's great. And he tweeted that play and was like, love some of the concepts I saw at Pitt. And I was like, we are getting recognized by a very talented national writer for our play calling, for our play scripting, our play design. What University of Pittsburgh team am I watching? Yeah, I said I made a comment earlier that I've never seen a Pitt team scheme guys open. I'm serious. Remember Watson and Signetti? Nobody was ever open at any point. Even Whipple, and hindsight has been great to Whipple in his time at Pitt. It's not like he was scheming guys open. He just had some guys like Jared Wayne and Taysier Mack and Jordan Addison were just getting open.
Yeah, I agree. This is, once again, we'll see how this plays out as we move up in the competition level. But the grade on the first game for Kade Bell's got to be an A+. Like passed with flying colors. I mean, they put up 55 points, 567 yards of offense. Like, I mean, I actually, like we said, I can't believe how good it looked right away.
And boy, did we need it for morale purposes. We were saying if we had a sloppy 28-14 win, I don't know. You don't want to get too high or too low after a week 1 game against a low-level opponent, but we actually did need this after last season. So I'm glad they delivered.
Yeah, we haven't talked a lot about Hammond, but I mean, that news going into your opener and then a sloppy opener, things could have gone south in terms of morale very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And one last apology I want to dole out is to Coach Narduzzi himself, because I think everybody expected us to run this abbreviated playbook. If they abridged the playbook, if they withheld anything, could have fooled me. because they even pulled out the double reverse flea flicker, which went horribly, but they pulled it out.
Yeah.
Like all credit to Duzz for it. And again, we are assuming that. And hey, maybe there's a second, third, fourth gear in Kade Bell's playbook, and we can be even more pleasantly surprised. But it didn't look like they were withholding anything, and I think that's a credit to Duzz to understand the position he was in and say, "Yeah, no, we got to get the boys rolling. We got to get our feet under us. Don't hold anything back."
Sorry, dude.
Okay, sorry, Duzz.
Are you or someone you know looking for work in a recession-proof industry? Are you someone that's interested in things like having health care, having a 401k, immediate PTO accrual, an employee assistance program, or referral payouts? Our newest sponsor, Haddad Accelerated Delivery, an Amazon delivery partner, is looking for safety-minded and dependable drivers to join their delivery service team. Be a part of a company that will encourage self-ownership and award bonuses based on exceptional safety and delivery efforts. This is the ideal gig for individuals seeking full-time work or students interested in making some pretty good money during breaks. If you or someone you know is safety-focused, hardworking, organized, efficient, and team-oriented, text HADD to 464-646 to apply. I understand that is an impossible string of letters and numbers, so here it is again. That's HADD to 464-646. For a job that's the total package, get it? Because, it's deliveries. Haddad Accelerated Delivery is the place for you.
All right, have we gotten all of our apologies out?
For now.
Okay. So we did cede 24 points to Kent State. So, there are things that can be improved. We got Holstein hit a couple times. Is there anything from that game that worries you guys? And to what extent do they worry you?
I'll jump in first. This was a worry of mine all off season. Our good pal Chris Peak said some nice things about the cornerbacks and how good our safeties were. And I heard some other things else where I'm like, you know what? Maybe they'll be all right. I'm still not loving how our secondary looks. We had a busted coverage on a long touchdown pass. There's another one that got called back. I'm still not sold on our secondary, and I think that could lead to some very, very high scoring games against us down the road.
Yeah, I gotta agree, Squid. There are two guys in particular that I wouldn't mind being on pretty short leashes against Cincinnati and West Virginia. One's an easier problem to solve than the other. PJ O'Brien single-handedly gave up 2 touchdowns. One on a slant on 4th and intermediate, where he just took about the worst angle on the ball I've ever seen. Got blown by, and then one on the end zone facing the river, a jump ball that again just had no idea where he was on the field, and with how deep that safety position is, obviously give him more chances. He's worked hard for the program. He showed out before, but we're 4 deep at the safety position, and all of those guys know both safety positions. That's going to have to be find a spot on the bench if he gets beaten that badly again against Cincinnati. And then Rashad Battle, I don't know what kind of depth we have at corner. I'd be hard pressed to believe that he's the answer.
Not going to have any disagreements from me. Like you said, we'll see how it plays out, but I mean, we know how vital that safety position is in our Duzzy's defense, and it needs to be guys who are solid, know where they need to be. PJ is a playmaker, turnover guy, interceptions, forced fumbles, whatever it may be. But I don't know. It sometimes feels like that safety spot, you more so want a guy who's just going to be really solid, not let anything behind him. I know it's not an easy position to play in the defense. We saw, the the Eric Hallett era was up and down. It was for a year or so. We were like, wow, Eric Hallett is getting beat every other play. And then the following year, it was like, oh, this guy's going to play in the NFL next year. So we know how tough that position can be. But PJ's been here a while. Like you said, David, it's a pretty deep spot right now. And Donovan McMillan, super solid, had a pick on Saturday. Javon McIntyre, solid, and then ton of hype coming up around Cruz Brookins as being the next guy there. So yeah, like you said, it's got to be better. Cannot give up, because if that's going to happen against Kent State, I can only imagine what's going to happen against a team like Cincy, who his quarterback threw for 380 yards last weekend.
Dylan, do you have anything that concerned you?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it on that side of the ball. Kent State didn't put up huge numbers. I mean, they scored 24 points, but 7 of those were gift wrapped off the fumbled punt return by Kade Mumpfield. 17 points, a little over 200 yards. But I don't know. I don't think the defensive line looks as dominant as it should against one of the worst teams in the FBS. I would like to see some more playmaking there. Positive spin, I think Sincere Edwards looked the part on Saturday. True freshman, looks like he will be here for 3 years and then go play in the NFL, play on Sundays. But I don't know. I think that defensive line is leaving a little bit to be desired. And after the performance Cincinnati and West Virginia had on the ground against us the last couple of seasons, especially Cincinnati last year, we need to clean that up quickly.
Yeah, if you just look at it on paper, I'm looking at the stats here. Kent State was 3 for 16 on third down. They had 212 total yards, $181 passing, 31 rushing. There were 2 turnovers, the interception, and also Brandon George punched the ball loose. And we had 5 sacks, which if you just look at that, you'd think that's a great day at the office. I don't care who you're playing. I'll be happy with that if it's Kent State or FCS Northeast. But I agree. Maybe I'll have to watch the tape a little bit more, as Pat Narduzzi said. I don't think there were too many guys that were noticeably like, wow, I loved what I saw. So we'll look a bit closer. I know there are a lot of different guys in there, so no one had a chance to play a ton just to get more bodies out there and come out of the game fresh. But I'd feel a lot better if there were 1 or 2 new guys who I was skeptical about that had me leaving the stadium talking about them. Like, wow, maybe the next Kalijah Cansey, something like that. And that is asking for a lot.
Do we have
now that you say it out loud,
first-round defensive tackle out there?
Sincere Edwards, well, defensive end. We had 5 sacks and 12 tackles for loss, and it still felt like it left a little bit to be desired on the defensive line.
I think they made plays when they needed them.
Yeah, maybe we're just bitching the bitch at this point. We need to complain about something, but
we'll apologize again here. Maybe we were wrong. Maybe our defense is really good.
I mean, and that feels very Pitt, that they put up the numbers that they did defensively, and still we feel a little icky. And that's why my worry is there was still a general pittiness about that game.
I mean, the game was 28-21 at one point.
It was 28-21 at one point, and at no point did it ever feel like it was actually a game.
No.
But it was 28-21, and we gave up 24 points to a team that had 200 yards. They scored a touchdown where our punt returner volleyball set the ball to a defender, and then he ran for a touchdown. We gave up 3, not to be dismissive, but 3 pretty fluky touchdowns that simply should not have happened. And it looks a lot closer on paper than it was. And now, maybe people will underestimate Pitt as a result. FPI, the Football Power Index, seemed to really like Pitt's performance, moved us up 9 spots in the ESPN rankings. And then there's a metric. What's that?
What are we ranked now?
44. 44.
Sure.
Yeah, why not? Moved up 9 spots. And then there's this other metric that I love, and it's how bad did you actually get beat? And it's a measure of like success and efficiency. And Pitt, in that metric, had like the 7th biggest margin of victory in college football on Saturday, up there with teams that won their games like 70-0. So we reduced this team that we played to a paste and still only won by 31 points in a game it felt like we should have won by 1,000. So and that is a very Pitt feeling thing, right? Like letting a terrible team that you're beating the hell out of hang around. And there's a lot of new guys, a lot of new coaches, but it just, a little worrisome that still seems very ingrained in the fabric of the program.
We may have had really high expectations for this game, just knowing that Kent State was as bad as they were last year. The line for this game, if you were betting, was 23.5 or 24. And Pitt covered that. But in our pregame prediction episode, what did we all predict? I think I predicted 48-0. David, you predicted like 45-3.
Yeah.
So maybe we were a little up in outer space, expecting this to be like, I don't know, playing against Delaware back when we had one of our best offenses ever. So,
I mean, again, to be fair, we are PJ O'Brien taking the worst angle of all time, Kanate Mumfield dropping a touchdown, then handing away a touchdown, and then Holstein making a very redshirt freshman pass in the red zone away from very much beating this team like 70-7.
Yeah, I think I'm going to put an
70
end
to
to
10
this right here.
but
We had 560 yards, allowed 212, and we won by 31.
I think we're all right.
We're done complaining.
Hey, get those mistakes out early. Clean them up next week. Those are the type of mistakes that can't happen in the future. Did either of you have another worry? Because I did want to bring up one that
is it the offensive line?
No, go for it.
Okay, then we have 2 more. You please.
Okay. Praised Eli Holstein at the beginning of this show, and I do think he's going to be really good this year, put up a ton of numbers. But also think he might just throw some very freshman interceptions, have a lot of very freshman turnovers this year. Maybe it's something they clean up through film, but the pick he threw right before the half was pretty egregious down there inside the 10-yard line. And then there was another pass a little later on in the second half that basically lobbed the ball into the end zone, and the defensive back just didn't make a good play on it, let the ball hit the turf, bailed us out there. But he had a couple passes that were just like, oh man, you cannot make those throws when we're playing better teams. So that's my one worry with Holstein's quarterback play right now. But I'm also just kind of accepting that he's a freshman and he's going to make those plays. And you have to kind of let him make those mistakes if you want to let him grow into what he can be down the road. But that's one thing where I was like, yeah, he's gonna throw a couple passes this year where we're like, dude, what were you thinking? But that's just kind of part of it.
Spin zone. I'm glad that he did it because you can actually look at it and be like, yep, I won't do that again. Got it out of the way in a game that didn't matter.
That's a very football guy mindset of you, Squid. I'm glad he threw all those picks so that he can grind some tape and learn from it. No, everything he does.
If he was perfect, he'd keep doing all that. If now he can be, yeah, maybe I'll be a little bit more careful. Good reminder to protect the ball when you're inside the 10-yard line and not just assume a guy's going to be open.
I was getting a little irate during the game when he threw stupid balls because I kept viewing it through the lens of like, there's a quarterback competition and Nate Yarnell doesn't underthrow it, a should be touchdown by 5 yards for an 80-yard interception return. But then you remember like, well, we could have this Holstein guy for 5 years and he put up 330 and 3 touchdowns. He can throw a little pick or two as a treat. He is a freshman. I think we're going to be okay at the quarterback position. I've been wrong before thinking that, but that was promising, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no. Overall, net positive, but
net positive. Just real last worry, because again, I think there was so much more promise than there was cause for concern at this game. You're gonna need the offensive line to get it together a little bit next week. Holstein was sacked 4 times, and they were getting pressure with 4 guys. Kent State was getting pressure with 4 guys. That's pretty unacceptable. They were maulers in the run game. Desmond Reed was barely getting touched, but you need to protect. You need to keep your quarterback upright. I need to see some improvement in pass blocking. Do we get all that out of our systems?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So before we head into the week, give me some overreactions. Let's get a little crazy here. We saw a couple really promising things. Let's go stand out on some limbs.
I'll start us off. Kenny Johnson. I think he could have a Jordan Addison-esque sophomore season. Now, will he win the Biletnikoff Award? Maybe. Will he be a future first-round pick? Maybe. But I love what I saw on Saturday, and I wasn't really sure what to expect. You know, Pat Narduzzi said he had an up-and-down camp. Seemed like he was injured a good amount of camp. Didn't really get to play a whole lot. But it's very clear that he didn't really miss a beat. They threw the first ball of the game to him. Looked like they wanted to get him involved early and often. And as a true sophomore, see some of the plays he made. Obviously, the over-the-shoulder catch on the first drive to get us down to the 1-yard line. The over-the-shoulder catch in the corner of the end zone for his first touchdown of the season. 7 catches, 105, and a tutty. I think Kenny Johnson's poised to be not only Pitt's best receiver, but one of the best receivers in the ACC and possibly the country. Like, I think he is that legit.
Yeah. Squid?
I'm going to say I think Desmond Reed will be top 3 in the ACC in all-purpose yards this season.
He's number 1 right now, right?
He is number 1 right now.
So you're assuming he's going to regress, Squid?
I'm giving myself a little bit of leeway here, all right?
I just compared Kenny Johnson to Jordan Addison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Desmond
Squid,
Reed, he
I
rushed
agree.
for 145, which is top 10. Only 11 receiving yards, but he had that 78-yard punt return. Grand total of 234 all-purpose yards, only behind Ashton Genty from Boise State, who had an absurd day. He had 6 rushing touchdowns, and McMillan for Arizona, who just had like video game numbers receiving. So great company he's up there with. And I think that'll continue. No Rodney Hammond. He'll obviously be the number 1 back now. I know Derek Davis will get some touches, but I don't think it's going to be by committee as it would have if we had a eligible Rodney Hammond. And if he's that good in the return game, that's an easy 50, 60, maybe more yards a game just by racking those up. So if it was possible to bet on that somehow, I would, because I think we're going to see more of it.
Love it. For me, my overreaction, Kyle Lewis is either going to be Pitt's defensive MVP this year or first team all ACC, but probably both. I mean, we talked a lot of cash on the defense and some of the struggles they had. He was not a part of that problem. 10 tackles, 1 sack, 1.5 TFL, and he just looks like a menace out there. That kid is gifted.
Yeah, I think he reminds me of Servassier Dennis. I think he just kind of he makes the plays, is always flying around, always just kind of playing with violent intentions. He was awesome on Saturday. And honestly, I thought the other young linebackers too. Rasheem Biles made a couple plays. Braylon Lovelace was bringing the wood. I think fast forward the next season. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but I mean, that's what we do. This could be maybe one of the best linebacking units in all of college football. Like we talked about how athletic they are, those young guys are, and there's a lot of promise with them. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what they could end up doing.
Earlier this episode, I said it would have been nice if we walked out of the stadium talking about how good different guys in our defense looked, because it was hard to tell just by watching in live time. Kyle Lewis was a guy that you noticed. Like early on, he was making plays, and he just made plays throughout. So I think everyone in our section collectively was like, yeah, there he is again. So he was easily 1A performers on the defense. And that's great because we need our linebackers to step up to maybe make up for the lack of a pass rush, stopping the run, which we struggled with last year.
Everybody who said that they were looking forward to this linebacking core was validated tenfold on Saturday. The top 5 linebackers combined for 35 tackles, 3 sacks, and doing quick math is not my strength, 6 or 7 tackles for loss. So those guys are going to be the strength of this defense. And I think we have an absolute diamond in the rough in Kyle Lewis. And Sincere Edwards. I think Sincere Edwards is going to be the starting defensive end by mid-season.
Yeah. I think as far as season openers go, that was obviously you had the hiccups, the nasty plays with the ugly interception, the fumble on the punt return. But I mean, as far as leaving a season opener, that's about as good as I've felt leaving a season opening game against a lower tier opponent. I'm not going to count the backyard brawl from 2022. That is just a completely different animal how I felt leaving that one. But I think basically everyone I talked to, whether it was during the game or after the game, other Pitt fans, everyone just kind of came away and was like, yeah, no, that was really fun. We thought they looked really good. The offense was good. Obviously, we know they need some plays. There's some plays that they need to improve on, but overall, that was what did we want to see? We wanted to see the new look offense. We wanted to see that it looked like 2024 college football. Kade Bell did that for us, and he went and hung 55 points on a MAC team.
Yeah, I felt great. I was able to look past Holstein's interception in the end zone. That didn't make me feel too bad. PJ O'Brien giving up 2 touchdowns didn't make me feel too bad. Mumpfield dropping a touchdown, then fumbling didn't make me feel bad. What did make me feel bad was drinking the piss warm mini bottle of champagne that David snuck into the stadium. That did not make me feel good.
I mean, if we're going down that route, all the shots with Line and Kugel Mike at Jeans. Shout out Line and Kugel Mike, always a pleasure, man. But
and his whole
holy
family.
hell, was yesterday a bear.
Yeah, Gene's place, love it to death. But I think we should all agree that we can't go to Gene's after any more noon kickoffs.
Yeah, we have a self-imposed ban from Jeans. We're banned for life from Jeans.
I mean, we can go back. Let's just maybe order
string a couple old Germans.
less shots.
Yeah. Well, hey, Tiger got out of the cage. We were a little excited after watching our
little excited
new and improved offense.
Kade Bell did this to us.
Yeah. We'll dial it back. Hey, we apologized to him early in the episode, but I think he might owe us. Us an apology. But well,
we accept apologies in form of 45 points against Cincinnati.
That'll do. That'll do just fine. Well, week 1's in the books. We are in a good mood. We feel good right now. But we're staring down the River City rivalry on Saturday. We'll hop back on some point this week to preview that one. And the Pitt Panthers are undefeated, 1-0. So not too much to complain about on this end. Any last thoughts you guys want to give before we sign it off?
Can't wait for Saturday.
Cannot wait. Pitt football is exciting again. Well, thank you for tuning in. If you're listening, please subscribe to us. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you listen. And as always, hail, loyal sons of Pittsburgh.